Hello and welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal. Tonight we've got something a wee bit different. I've got a wonderful guest, Billy Davies, who's going to be joining us this evening. I hope you all tune in and enjoy.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Hello and welcome everyone. As I said there just before I brought Billy on board, we are joined by the one and only Billy Davies, who is kind enough to come on and have a chat tonight for our viewers. Firstly, Billy, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Kevin, it's an absolute pleasure to join you and the rest of your team, and very much looking forward to having a chat with you.
Perfect. And how are you getting on at the moment, Billy, and what are you up to nowadays?
Yeah, I'm going great, Kevin. I've obviously been preparing very, very long, very hard in relation to looking forward to getting back into the game. I've been doing a lot of study, as you can imagine, and a lot of preparation for stepping back onto the grass again, and I look forward to that.
Great to hear. I suppose I was going to ask then, have you missed management?
Well, it's not so much missing management, Kevin. I think that if you look at over the last number of years, there's been a lot of things that took place, and if you don't mind, I'll go through one or two things so it gives you a rough idea of what's been happening. Back many years ago, I had a long-standing dispute with the previous owners of Nottingham Forest. In addition to that, I've got to say, Kev, I was badly advised during a whole range of that process by people that should have known better. That advice should have been better, and that advice came from, if you like, people in the non-footballing side. And then after that, we find ourselves in a very difficult pandemic, as you know. After that, I find myself dealing with many, many years of serious family health issues. And then since then, Kevin, I've went and done a diploma in football management in Liverpool University. I've done all my studies and my building qualification, as well as games, the trips abroad, and all the continued personal development that goes with it. So a long time, Kevin, but a lot going on.
Great. And I suppose with all the extra studying that you've done on top of the wealth of experience you would have had before, do you think that's going to make you come back as an even stronger coach next time around?
I would think so. I would probably say that I am probably best prepared than I've ever been in relation to going back on the grass. Evolving is very important as a coach manager, keeping up to the trends, watching the games, looking at the players and the systems, getting to know the referees and all the bits that go along with it, and basically travelling abroad, seeing some different cultures, meeting some new people. And I want to say that I've picked up a lot of information and I've learned a lot through that process and period, and very excited now to get the boots back on.
Great. And do you think, if you could pick one thing, what do you think you miss most from that sort of coaching side of the game?
Well, there's nothing better than being on the grass with the players, Kev. There's nothing better than being in the dressing room with the banter. There's nothing better than sitting with the staff and, all staff at the club. I've had so many great times, and you have those Friday afternoon get-togethers with the tea ladies and the secretaries and the staff, the football staff, and you go and you organise little tea and cake afternoon for them and let them know that you appreciate their work and all that banter, either on the training ground or in the offices, or whatever, the hotels and the trains. I've got to say, Kev, that's one thing that I really miss. I miss that camaraderie.
Aye, I can only imagine. And I know you're saying you're looking at get back in again into the football. Would it be more the management side, the coaching side? What's your sort of target points for that?
Well, I've got to say, I'm nothing but a tracksuit manager. I'm a guy that loves to be on the training ground. I'm a guy that loves to be in amongst the players and the staff. I love preparing teams. I love making and helping players getting better. I love to see our team going out and being very well organised and very disciplined and ready to perform for the very, very much paying supporters. So for me, there's nothing more than me the manager, if you like, me the manager, me the coach, and I believe that that's my best strength.
And I probably speak on behalf of everyone listening tonight. I think we wish you well on that journey, and hopefully it's something you get to get into very soon. And probably when you're thinking back in your management, have you got any like sort of standout moments you think that's right up there that you think's the best of your managerial career?
It's funny because taking over the clubs that I took over are all in the bottom 5 or 6. Particularly Forest, the first time youngest squad in the Championship. I think there were about 13 or 14 games remaining at the end of the season. We just missed out relegation. We kept them up 2 games before the finish. I've got to say that was, in my opinion, probably my best managerial achievement because of the age of the squad, the management that had to be put in, the coaching that had to be put in. And I thoroughly enjoyed that project. That was a very difficult one. Don't get me wrong, there was nothing to beat the playoff semi-final and the final. There was nothing to beat the promotions and the achievements that we had. I thoroughly enjoyed all the broken records and the manager of the months and all the things that came along with myself and the staff. And there's just so many good times at all the clubs, Kev. So many good times.
Great. And I suppose I think the good thing about sometimes when you have a break away from any sort of job and then when you look to get back in, you've got that sort of time for reflection and looking back. Do you think there's anything you think you would do differently now that you've had that sort of breakaway, done the extra studying and had time to look back?
Well, I think if you look back at all our lives, I think every single one of us, none of us are perfect. We've all done things that we think maybe that would have been different. We're not sure. But maybe if we went a different road, it may have been different. But I'll be honest, I don't think you can live with too much regret. You do what you think at the right time. In those circumstances, you just make decisions. You do what you think is best for the team, for the players, for the owners, for the fans, for your staff and everybody involved. And it's all about learning. I think as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, Kev, as long as you're making those decisions with honesty, you're making those decisions with transparency, and you're making those decisions in the best interest of the club and the owners and the people involved, then I think that's all you can do. So you're always learning, but at the same time too, we've done many, many good things and we enjoyed many good times.
Some great insight, Billy. Thank you. And I suppose just one last thing, just about just management specifically. Do you think there's like a specific strength you think you could pick out one strength that you think's been, or skill, or strength or skill that you think's like really helped you within your management career?
Well, I think, and I often tell people this, I've had a great upbringing. I've been playing this game. I've been involved in this game for probably the best part of 54 years. And during those 54 years as a young player, and then you go and you get involved in your boys' clubs with some very people that took boys' clubs that were working hard to help you use guys come off the street and play football. I then got into senior football. I came across some great teammates, excellent coaches, excellent managers, all through my time at Rangers in the 6 years, moving on to the Motherwells and the St Mirrens and the Prestons and Dunfermline. And then, of course, into the management side yourself, again, working with all these different people. But I would say one of my best strengths, and according to a lot of the reports that come back to me, is being able to get the best out of people. I think that's one thing that I love. That challenge excites me, to be able to get the best out of people. That's very important.
I think that's pivotal, isn't it? Especially for whether that be youth players, experienced players, players that have potentially lost their way. I think being able to have a manager come in and be able to get the best out of them is probably like a key skill in any sort of leadership role. And I know I said that was my last question, right? But I'm getting into this now, and I'm really keen.
Anything at all.
What part in your player career do you think that management was the sort of next step for you?
Well, again, I go back to my like travelling to Manchester United. I was going there from 12 to I think about 15 and a half. I was travelling down every holiday with a very famous chief scout in Scotland called Jimmy Dickey, who took me down to a Dave Sexton's Manchester United, a team full of Scottish players, the Joe Jordans, Lee McCarrys, Arthur Albistons, many great players in the Greenough brothers, etc. At that point in the youth team, I was very much involved with people like Mark Hughes, Norman Whiteside, and Clayton Blackmores, and these guys. And I've got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed that whole experience. And then going to Rangers, you sit back and you think about joining this wonderful club, a team that obviously my family supported. And I've got to say, I had great memories, Kev, all the way through the learning curves, through the players that you come across and play beside, and of course the coaches and the managers that you eventually work with. And it was a great experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great insight again, and I suppose it links us in nicely to Rangers in general. And I suppose before I start getting questions across to you about current state of affairs at the club at the moment, but I think what a lot of listeners would be interested in is what was it like to play for Rangers Football Club and be a part of that?
Well, for me, it probably came, I think, too early for me. Wrong place, wrong time. I've always said that. Again, that's hindsight. Hindsight's a great thing, but when you go into these clubs, it's all about building and gaining confidence. It's all about having a little edge about you. And I've said time and time again, Kev, that it was probably the wrong place, a wrong time for me. Early 80s was a big turning point for Glasgow Rangers, as you know. It was a big change in the early 80s. And there was a lot going on in and around the club. But I look back in my time at Rangers, I certainly, again, young players develop and mature at different ages. Some come through early, some come through late. And for me, I probably didn't mature and gain confidence until, I think, probably 23, 24. So my early days, I think there's a lack of confidence, a lack of belief. And also, it probably gave too many people too much respect, and that didn't help me in my own development, I think.
Well, okay. And I suppose one that I think everyone would be interested in hearing as well, because I think there was a point in time, probably around a 5-year stint, maybe more, that every time there was a position came up for the Rangers manager's job, you always seemed to be one of the odds-on favourites for the job. Was there ever a time where that was even close for you?
Kevin, it's very interesting because, as you said, since probably 2004, 2006, at that time, obviously, my stock was growing. I was obviously moving from Preston to Derby to Forest. We were involved in playoffs and playoff finals. I was linked to the Rangers job continually over that period. I've got to say what's very interesting, Kev, is that in my last club that I left that club 13 defeats and 59 with my best stats out of every job I'd done. And we came very close. Got a call from a director. My agent got a call from a director, I think 2017, if I remember right. The director told me that I told my agent that we would be getting a call from one of the directors in relation to going for an interview. And we were waiting on that, obviously, we're waiting on that call. And unfortunately, that call never came in from the director that was supposed to make that call. So I don't know what happened, Kevin. What I'm disappointed in is through all of those times of great success and stats and results in a results-driven business, including my last job, was my best results and stats out of every club I'd been at. Unfortunately, I've never been given the opportunity to speak to the club, or I've never spoke to anybody from the club. That's very disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. And
yeah, sorry, Kev, it was actually Stuart Robertson that was meant to give us the call, and I said that came from a director, but Stuart Robertson never made that call. Don't know why, and it's very, very disappointing.
No, I can imagine. And I'm trying to think, 2017, was that around the Murty Caixinha time? Is that about right?
Yeah, around about that time, I think it was, yes.
God, and if you look at the decision we made there, then not ideal, but I could definitely understand the disappointment. Kev,
I've always said that, me personally, this this is just a personal opinion. I believe I've got destiny written in relation to myself and Rangers. I believe that there's destiny there somewhere. I honestly believe at some point that will happen, whether it's now or many years ahead. But I certainly believe it will happen. I believe it's in my destiny.
So I take it that's then something that you would be more than keen on then, if the opportunity was to present itself then?
I'd be more than keen, first of all, to get a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
I think it would be keen for somebody to sit down and have a look at the stats and the records. Ignore the noise. Everybody knows what the noise out there is all about, and we can all read into what the noise is. But look at the football stuff. Speak to players, speak to coaches, speak to people at clubs, and they'll find out that maybe a conversation is something that they should maybe consider at some point. But I mean, obviously, that will only happen when the club is looking for a new manager. At the minute, I've got a manager that's certainly moving things forward, and I wish them well in their future games this season.
And I suppose just on Rangers at the moment, have you had the chance to watch Rangers enough this year? And if so, what's your sort of thoughts on us currently, or if you look from the start of the season until now?
Well, it's easy to sit and pick somebody else's team. That's the easiest job in the world. And if you don't know what's going on in the inside, then it's difficult to make comment. The current Rangers manager has got his own way of working. He's got his own systems that he likes to play. I think it's 17 so far out of the game that he's played this season. He's went with the 4-2-3-1 formation. That's how he wants to play. That's how he prepares his players. And it's very difficult to sit here and see what's good or bad. Very difficult to make comments when you don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis. And you've just got to give the manager the support that's there, trust in what he's doing along with the board, and hopefully they can, between the end of the season, they can move the club forward and make the fans very, very happy.
And I suppose that this question probably tough to answer, like you said, without being there and without knowing. But what do you think some of the things you think Clermont could be up against, sort of behind just the actual pitch at the weekend? What do you think could be some of the factors that will be influencing potentially the performances and results on the pitch?
Kevin, is very. I've seen them 3 or 4 times this year live. I've seen them many times on the television. As I said before, it's easy to pick somebody else's team, and we're all great managers sitting on a sofa, as we all know. But it's just a matter of you've got to let that manager do what he believes in. That's exactly what he's doing. It's a very difficult question because unless you're on the training ground and you get that man management skill into people inside the training ground and inside the stadium, then it's very difficult to pick holes on what's going on or what's taking place. But I think the one thing that if you look at the scores so far, I think August there was 7 points from 9, September 6 points from 9, October was probably the poorest return with 6 points from 12. But you've got to say over the last number of games in November, certainly in November, I feel they've had a very good one against Motherwell in the semi-final. They've also had a great draw at Olympiacos. And then, of course, they picked up a good one at home to Hearts. So November so far has been a very good month for Rangers, and they've picked up some very good scores.
And you made an interesting point. You mentioned, I think, it's so easy, I think, sometimes for fans to think they're the armchair manager, I think you'd said, where the sort of style of play has been one of the sort of main phrases that people are picking up on, and that they can't see a style of play in Rangers. I suppose a question for you, obviously being an expert in the field and knowing more about that than the majority of fans, can you see the style of play that Rangers are trying to implement at the moment?
Well, you can see it. It's a system that the managers decided to play, that one up top, which can be a very difficult system. And I do feel sorry for the strikers at times. When you play that system out of all the games this season, Rangers have decided to play 2 strikers on one occasion. And we all know that 2 strikers can help you win matches, and it can certainly help that entertainment value. But at the same time, too, as I go back to the same thing, Kevin, you can't criticise. Every manager's got his own style. At the minute, 4-2-3-1 formation is what the manager wants to play. It's what the players are very comfortable in. And as I said, overall, it's a long season. As I said earlier on, August, September, October would have been a little bit disappointing. November's been very good. And as the season goes on, you're hoping that you can see the Rangers team getting stronger and stronger and more confident. And hopefully by the end of the season, you guys can pat the manager on the back for his team selections and his formation selection as well.
And I suppose, like you say, that it's a long season. I think a lot of Rangers fans at the moment are probably got that defeatist attitude, and they think the season's a write-off already. I think you would disagree with that. You would say that you mentioned it yourself, it's a long season. Do you think there's still a chance for Rangers to go and compete for the league this year?
Well, why would you? Why would you, in this month, with such a long way to go, why would you be so negative towards what can happen in the future? There's a lot of games to go. There's a lot of football to be played, and there's certainly a lot of good things that can happen. So I think I would suggest to the Rangers fans that get behind the team, get behind the manager, get behind the club, because there's a long way to go, and that positive energy can generate some real spirit in the team, and also can bring on some great performances and great results.
Okay, no, definitely. I think it's a battle of the mind. Sometimes I think this international break for me as a fan has probably been a good for a sort of reset. So I suppose what I was saying there, I think the November, the run of games over the last few matches, like you mentioned a couple there, I think Hearts and Motherwell being big ones. I think it's probably trying to have that sort of positive run going after the international break. So I think it's a positive that we've come in with a positive result and not so much the negative result then the break, which I think can cause problems. And I don't know if you caught it, because one thing that I thought was quite interesting, I don't know if you caught Graham Souness's comments on TalkSport probably about 2 months ago now, I think, where he felt there wasn't enough football people a part of the Rangers board right now. Would you agree on that? And do you think that's something that's important for a club, especially a club the size of Rangers?
Well, again, without knowing exactly who's involved, I'm not sure what the structure is. I'm not sure who the decision makers are. I'm not sure, whose role does what, for example. And there's enough experience in there, I'm sure, Kevin, to be able to handle people moving on, people leaving the club. It happens everywhere. So I can understand why he may be suggesting that, Graham. But at the same time, too, there's a lot of football people in there that know what's required and know exactly what it takes to run a club the size of Rangers.
Definitely, and I suppose one of the big things just now, where if you're looking at the differences between Rangers and Celtic, taking like the table and the form and the results aside, it's probably like the financial difference between the clubs. I think when you look at the most recent reports that came out, where we're running at a loss, in Celtic I think are sitting around £80 million in profit. What do you think Rangers need to do to try and reduce that gap and be able to be competitive?
Probably more consistency, I think. We talked about August, September, October. As I said, it was 7 from 9, 6 from 9, and then 6 from 12 points that was taken over those 3 months. November has started very well. I also think a little bit more consistency on the away form. I think, again, there's been 1 or 2 losses there that I'm sure that the guys in the club would have hoped to pick something up from the away games. And I just think consistency, hopefully between now and the end of the season, that consistency can be found. And I certainly feel that would help build the confidence and get that energy that you need going into this very difficult period.
And I suppose the big thing that Rangers are trying to push just now is that sort of player trading model. Do you think, looking at our current squad, do you think there's any like sort of current assets you look at right now that we probably can start to claw that gap back?
Well, there's 35 of a squad. In that 35 of a squad, it is a very young side. I think there's only I think, is it 4 or 5 players over the age of 30, something like that. And amongst the 35 squad, I think there's something like 8 or 10 young players. But even over and above that, when you look at the players that's in the team, there's certainly a lot of young players in their early 20s. It's a squad that you would like to think will be better as it gets older. And when you look at the age and the experience of the team, then you can see that there's a specific model that the Rangers people have decided to go down. And you can see that age bracket of where they decided to target. And that's clearly evident when you look at the squad in general, the 35-man squad.
I think there's certainly a few standouts. I think some people have potentially been overcritical with some of the signings. I think, probably just touching on a point you had mentioned earlier, it's a long season. Some of these guys are just in the door. Some young, some coming from a completely different country, don't speak the language. I think you can definitely see some promising signs in the younger signings that we've made. I think Connor Barron specifically being probably one of the standout signings. You also look at Jeffy that we've won at left back, and then from the small cameos and a couple of starts that Eggman's had, I think we can certainly see that there's some raw potential in there. I think probably another massive focus point for Rangers just now is our youth academy and the probably lack of structure we've got there at the moment. As a manager yourself, how important is the youth academy to you?
Well, I think every manager should be keen to work very closely with the academy players and with the academy coaches. I mean, don't get me wrong. Many supporters will think that a manager should and could. Certainly my first time at Forest, the clear instruction to me was that I was to have nothing to do with the academy, and that academy was in the control of the chief executive. Now, I'm fine with that, Kev. That's a board decision, and the fans need to understand. If you're asking me honestly with you, I think, then I've always tried to integrate academy coaches with first team staff. I've always tried to integrate academy players, B team players, A team players with the first team. I think it's very important for experience and development, and I think it's something that a manager should always want to be involved in, watching the games, watching the training, speaking to the coaches and the young players, getting to know who they are. And I think that's crucial, Kev, very crucial for the long-term future of the club. But what you need a club that's working on the same page. As I said, sadly at Forest, first time that remit was taken away from me. That was their decision. I had to respect their decision. And it was up to the chief executive at that point to go and run that academy whatever way he's seen fit. And it's very similar to Rangers. We really don't know what the remit is. We don't know what the structure is. And we don't know what the plan is moving forward.
And we done a really interesting pod a few weeks ago where we had conversation just about not just youth football at Rangers, but just youth football in Scotland in general. And the way the current setup is just now taking Hearts' B team out of the equation, because I know they compete in the Lowland League, but the rest of the teams all playing in friendlies. Do you think that's something that would hinder the young players just now, that there's no competitive football at that B team level?
Well, I'm a bit old-fashioned. I did love reserve team football. I thought reserve team football back in the good day was great for as a young player. You would experience senior players in that reserves, and at that point you played home and away. You got to these big stadiums, and it certainly was a big learning curve as a young player. I understand that the hierarchy in the game of move things forward, and their eyes, they've changed things around and they've decided to do what they've got to do. And then other clubs have decided to have this and have that and restructure the club from inside. But no, I think there's nothing better, than getting the young players used to competitive football, winning matches, getting into the habit of winning matches, and getting into the habit of winning matches that mean something. The friendly games are important. I think you need them when you're bringing back suspended players and injured players, and you're trying to go and get players 90 minutes of football. That's very important. But at the same time too, I think, we should never forget that little competitive edge is something that we should always have in our makeup, no matter what our industry is.
Absolutely, and I think that's potentially where the struggle I feel is maybe moving up from that sort of youth football, playing friendlies all the time, to then going into a starting 11 or even making a squad for the first team at Rangers, where that expectation is to win every single game, and it's maybe if it's just that big of a jump. Do you think even with the current setup, do you think even some of the young Rangers lads, especially some of the ones that have picked up a lot of experience already, so the likes of maybe Leon King, Alex Lowry, I know he had a short spell out on loan. Do you think these sort of players would benefit from going out and getting some minutes elsewhere if the time's just not right now for Rangers?
Well, you've already got, over and above the 35, you've already got 8 out on loan. So these guys are out on loan getting good experience. The other guys that are in there, as you mentioned, some of the young names there just now, we know that in the Rangers season, because of all the European football and then the cup competitions in the league, then that squad depth is very important. And that's why maybe the staff of Rangers feel that these young guys need to be in and around the first team squad. You then look at the competitive edge, the games that they're playing, and again, Kev, without really knowing the fixture list and what's going on on a week-to-week basis, many practice matches are playing, what kind of football are these guys getting to keep themselves match fit, if you like. And then it's difficult to comment, but you can see why, because there's a lot of games for clubs like Rangers and Celtic, and there's a lot of squad depth required to take you through those very difficult periods.
No, that sounds great. And I know Niels Coppin, who recently just promoted to technical director, I believe is the title that he's been given now. And his recent interview on Rangers TV speaks a lot about wanting to get people that have got that Rangers DNA, people that have been here before, involved within the youth setup. Do you think that's important? Again, especially for a club like ours.
Well, I think Rangers have always had an identity. And I think the Rangers fans know what that identity is. We do understand the modern world. We do understand, why certain things are done and the reasons for it. But at the same time, too, Kev, the history of this club tells you what its identity is. And we should not forget the history of this football club. And all these great players, all these great coaches, and all these great managers that these wonderful supporters have followed for many years. And I understand what the new technical director is saying, and I'm sure that they're looking at that and realising that in back to the identity of the club, something that needs to be considered.
No, I couldn't agree more, to be fair. And I suppose to wrap up our conversation, if you were to give any words of encouragement to Rangers fans for the remainder of the season, what would that be?
You've had a great November so far. There's been really good results. You've now got a final to look forward to. It's very early in the season. You can see that hopefully November is the start of the consistency for Rangers between now and the end of the season. And with that positive support and with that patience that's required when you're building a team, then I'm sure that the fans will watch the club get stronger and stronger between now and the end of the season. And as I said before, get behind the team, get behind the board, get behind the club, and let them get that patience required to let young players be confident, settle into the team, and then find their form. I think that's very important.
Amazing, Billy. And I suppose final question for me, I know you touched on earlier that you're now wanting to move back into getting back on the grass, back into coaching, back managing teams. What's the sort of next steps then for Billy Davies? Is it applying for jobs? Is it still a bit more studying?
No, it's. I think I'm now ready, Kev. I've done all the building qualification. I've done all the necessary taking care of family. I've done all the travel across the world, visiting clubs and spending time with foreign clubs and speaking to foreign board members, directors of football, etc. I've enjoyed, as I said, all the qualifications that I've been through, things that I found very important, like women's football, disabled football, first aid, head injuries, and all the other things I could mention to you. What's next is I'm looking out to go into a very a good project, somebody that's now ready to go and work very hard to try and get success, and I feel I'm ready for that. It really doesn't matter to me where that is, as long as it's the right type of project. And I'm going to say, Kev, I've never been more ready. I'm excited. I'm passionate. I've got that desire and drive back, and I can't wait to get those boots back on and get back on that training ground. And hopefully it won't be too long.
I can feel the passion coming from your voice, Billy. And I suppose on behalf of me and everyone here at the Rangers Journal, we obviously wish you every bit of success in the future, and hopefully you'll be able to reach your ambition sooner rather than later. And other than that, thank you so much for coming on. I know me, the rest of the guys here at the Rangers Journal, really appreciate it. I've really, really enjoyed the chat that we've sat and had today. And thank you for everyone that tunes in and listens in. But again, Billy, all the best. And for everyone watching, just remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night.
Yeah,